this is Lisha.
And this is Steph, and you're listening to
Trashbacks Podcast. Hi, Steph.
Okay. Hi, Alicia.
How's it going in
How's it
Toronto?
going? It's going well. It is 10:42 in the morning and it is raining out today. It's been raining all week. How is it where you are?
It's hot. It's extremely cloudy. It's supposed to rain, so it's extremely hot and humid right before it rains and pours. And it's about 8:12 at night, evening, I guess you could say, in Bangalore, India.
Okay, classic. I'm starting my day, you're ending yours. Time for a chat.
Yeah, I'm not exhausted from the day at all.
I definitely did not just eat a full slice of cake for breakfast so it could give me energy for the day. Yes.
Not at all.
She knows health.
So what's going on this beautiful planet Earth?
Well, as we all know, that the world is on fire.
But what is new?
Well, what's new? I don't know.
Ice caps are melting. It's getting hotter.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't really think that's new. I think that's just maybe people are starting to pay more attention to it now. Thankfully, because they've ignored it for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is like kind of wild.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like for yourself, do you remember the first time that you like had a conversation or like brought into the idea of global warming or climate change as it's now called, or like any of that sort of idea?
I think it started with disciplining my family, and it's sort of when I started getting exposed to these ideas in school and through television and media. I would actually try and apply it in my life, and I noticed that my family wouldn't follow it, or they wouldn't understand the ideas of all the damage we're causing. So I would start with little things like do not throw litter on the streets, because it's so common to do that in India. And then they stopped doing that, and then I completely boycotted McDonald's and KFC and these kind of fast food chains after watching this documentary on McDonald's. And then I forced them to boycott it, and I forced them to follow my ways as well. But then I was like, what's the point of doing all this? And I just gave into things. And then they would teach me. They were like, I thought you boycotted McDonald's. Why the hell are you eating there? And I'm like, mind your own business, please. What about you?
Yeah, it's definitely hard to like maintain such a perfect, like regulated, regimented lifestyle around these things sometimes. And like being gentle with yourself is definitely important, and McDonald's making the changes is more important than, or not more important, because like obviously individual change is important, but like McDonald's needs to be the one to step up. It shouldn't just fall on your shoulders and your family's shoulders, because that doesn't even make any sense.
Sometimes a girl just wants a McFlurry, man.
I feel you. I feel you for sure. The first time I was exposed to it that I like remember it was definitely in elementary school. We watched Al Gore's oh my gosh, what was the movie called? It wasn't just called Climate Crisis, but it was like very much like a climate crisis movie. And I don't know, I was probably in like grade 7, and it was the first of its kind that I had ever seen. Like I didn't grow up watching like Planet Earth. I don't even know when those came out. Yeah, my family's always been pretty green, and like we've always had a home compost bin like in our backyard before composting was ever brought to our area, and like we definitely were the ones to like would talk to and like kind of like teach other people, I guess, like how to use it properly. Which sounds very like eco green hippie of me when I think of it like as like a child teaching other children how to compost, but it didn't feel like that at the time. And like I've always been really big on recycling, and like I've definitely as a child was like an annoying little brat to my, like I grew up neighbors with my family, with my cousins, and was like why do you guys have so many garbage bags, like you should be recycling half of that. Like I was definitely 1000% that child. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I just like always kind of found it a little bit fascinating, and then like as I grew up I learned that like, oh, this isn't an interesting hobby. This is the like how to help the world live longer. I don't know how to phrase that.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I guess Al Gore is definitely the one who like brought it to my attention.
Interesting, because isn't
Yeah.
Al Gore American?
He is, yes. He
Yeah.
was, what was it? He was like the vice president or something.
Yeah.
And then, but like he was like such a big voice for it. I don't even remember the name of his movie now, but it kind of like came out, and the world was pretty divided, in my knowledge at least, as like a 14-year-old kid.
Yeah.
The world was like pretty divided as to like, wow, Al Gore is like really trying to open our eyes right now, and like being in this like strong, I don't think he was still vice president when he wrote. I feel like maybe I should just Google who he is really quickly, because
Yeah, no, I think he
I don't
was
know any history.
vice president.
But I don't think he was anymore when he made the movie.
Okay.
But yeah, it was like people seemed, at least from my young mind's perspective, pretty divided as to like, wow, this is cool, this like political person is bringing these things to our attention, or the other half just like closed their minds and went, no, this is a lie, this is a rumor, you can't say global warming when other places are getting cold, so clearly this makes no sense. And honestly, I think that that is where a lot of people like kind of like, you know how sometimes people will like get an opinion and then just like they're too stubborn to open their mind and change their opinion. I think that his movie like kind of was a little bit of the like initiator for that, of people just being like, no, he's not a scientist, we can't trust him, or like, yeah, like the fact that it started off with the name global warming and then had to change to climate change because people couldn't they couldn't wrap their heads around like, why is it global warming if Texas is getting snow? That's not warmer, that's colder. Like, yeah.
It's very interesting because at least in India, there is no for or against global warming. There's just people who know about it, or there's people who don't know about it.
That sort of blows my mind. Like, how do you not know about it at this point? Like, it's 2021. You know, like, even like Greta Thunberg, or how, I don't know how to say her name properly. I feel like that's like a household name, even when pronounced incorrectly. Like, you know, and
I mean, at least in India, you have to remember that there's a lot of poor people who are not very educated and who have no knowledge about anything about this. They're just going about their lives, not making a lot of impact. So they have no idea about any of this. And it's usually the educated who know about this, and either they give it importance or they don't. But nobody's actually denying it. You know what I mean?
I mean, I think that's honestly, I think like a bit of a better place to be, because like ignorance, you can teach someone from ignorance, but when someone is just in blatant denial and they're being presented with the facts and they're still just in blatant denial, then like that person is choosing ignorance.
Yeah.
You know? And so I think that like ignorance just on the basis of like being literally unaware of these things, I think it's a lot easier to like teach someone and to like come to them from a side of like compassion and being like, hey, man, don't worry, like I get it. You've never heard these things before, and it's might sound really confusing at first, but like let's break it down into some small bite-sized pieces, and then it's not so scary and it's not so big.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah, that's true.
I don't know, that's my feelings at least.
Absolutely.
Feelings can't be right or wrong. They're just your feelings.
Okay, so another thing is, third world countries don't make as much impact as North America does. So the way North America lives, you need probably about 3 Earths to sustain the amount of resources consumed by them and the amount of trash produced by them and the pollution caused by them. So does that mean it's all
Okay.
right that we are ignorant about this? Because we're
That is
not
so
actually
terrible
making
and
impact.
terrifying.
Yeah.
um, I mean, I think it's best when everyone's informed on everything, but of course I say that being a person who is not informed on everything because that's impossible.
Yeah.
So like obviously impossibility is the best option because that's the best option for most things. Um, but
I'll
I mean, yeah, like clearly that means that like my world, North America, like we need to get better at things. Um, and like I think it even means like having conversations and like learning how to adopt practices maybe from your culture or like other cultures around the world that are less impactful and like
absolutely, yeah.
yeah, just like consider how are all these other people going about and how have they been going about just fine
Hmm.
with such a lower impact
Hmm.
for so long and like I don't know, why am I a trash monster who's addicted to paper?
I remember when I was younger, if I would never waste paper. It was extremely precious to me. I don't know. It's just the fact that if it's just the idea of paying money and buying this product, I never wanted to kind of burden my parents with spending on me. I guess that was one thing, and another thing is it's just it's kind of inbuilt in the culture to always respect books and knowledge, that I would use the tiniest little space on the page available. I would never waste paper at all. And this was something I was talking to a friend about. She was homeschooled in Africa, and then she moved back to Canada. Well, she's Canadian. She moved back to Canada. I don't know if you're listening, my friend. But if you know who you
Oh,
are,
I was like,
hi.
yeah, I can hear you fine. You didn't freeze.
Yeah. So she pointed this out. She was like, they waste a lot of paper in Canada and North America, and that became very evident to me as well. And it's truly mind-boggling because it scares me, because I know paper is coming from trees, and you have to cut down
Hmm.
trees to make it, and and I'm always like trying to figure things out. And when I saw others, and I realized that the same process is not going on in their head, I'm like, but why not? What was the difference that
Hmm.
made me think about it and made you not think about it? Why aren't you educated about this? Isn't it basic knowledge that everybody knows that paper comes from trees, and trees are a valuable
Well,
resource?
I think like to I don't know, interject at least like my own life experiences is
Mm-hmm.
very much because we're taught like just pop it in the recycling. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like I feel like I don't know if it's like a very North American or like maybe it's just my own personal mindset, but like very much have been taught like these ideas of just like, well, it's not garbage if you put it in the recycling. That means it's fine. That means that you've put it in this bin where it will be transformed into something new that you will buy. Like you're gonna buy this exact same paper again, so it's fine. And it's like, no. like when you start looking into it a bit more and you learn, that's not how it works, and there is still waste in that process. And it's like so many of the notebooks I buy are new paper. They're
Yeah.
not, I mean, I try and look for ones that are recycled content more so now, but like how many notebooks or just like a stack of lined paper is going to be new paper,
Mm-hmm.
Because again, it's like, it's very much like a weird thing from my childhood. I remember one of my teachers would always give us recycled paper, And I'm sure the technology's gotten better, or maybe she was just buying like the cheapest paper she could, but it was always like so thin. It was like newspaper, kind of
Mm-hmm.
like newsprint paper.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like that same kind of brownish color. And like if you press too hard with your pencil, like you just like rip the paper and you're like, okay, well, this is crap. Like I'd rather use the new paper.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then like you'd still take that new paper, you'd use it, and then you'd throw it in the recycling and say, that's fine, I'm just gonna get recycled paper out of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, I think that's kind of at least like my justification for so long has just been like, it'll just be recycled. Or or hoarder mentality. I couldn't even tell you how many books and notebooks I have. Could not. Could not.
Let's talk about recycling because in India, recycling is not a thing, you know. I mean, it's
Mm,
not promoted or anything. It's you have these little shops where you can take your recyclables and sell it to them and you make money. So that is a kind of an incentive for us to
mm,
recycle. That is something my grandfather had been doing, so that's encouraged by us. So we save our
mm-hmm,
newspapers and any cardboards and paper that can be recycled, as well as like plastics. And we know it is getting recycled because we talk to them and they tell us that they sell it to these factories, recycling factories. And if it's not
mm.
recyclable, they do not buy them. So we
Oh.
know it's getting recycled. But please enlighten me on this brain, if I can say with air quotes, brainwashing, or, like this propaganda of recycling in North America.
Well, again, we're kind of taught as like little kids, you have this plastic thing, you don't want it anymore, or it's broken, or it's served its purpose. You just toss it in the recycler. And that's, again, like this magical bin that will take your problems and it will not make them into trash, it will make them into treasures. And that's not the case, apparently. Apparently, everything we've been taught is a lie,
Yeah.
and you can't trust the adults. um, because, like, and I think it's like pretty common knowledge, and I think I assume it's pretty global that, like, when you flip over a piece of plastic, there's that little, like, recycling, the chasing arrows
Hmm.
with the numbers in it. Is that where you are?
Hmm.
Eh,
We have
yeah,
them as well,
okay.
yeah.
I assumed so. I don't know. Like, most of our stuff is made in China, so I assume around the world, like they kind of just like export to everywhere, but I don't know about world exports. I don't know about anything. I'm just a little idiot on the internet. I think that sums me up pretty well. Anyways, yeah, so we're kind of taught to just like toss everything in the recycling. And then there was this like, I don't know. I feel like it was a shift that happened, but turns out it wasn't, where it was like, by the way, like clean your recyclables before you toss them in the bin because or else they won't get recycled. So then that was the thought. It was like, okay, so we're throwing in all this plastic and it's getting recycled. And then we learned that like, no, 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 it has to be cleaned first. So then that was getting recycled. And then we're like, okay, great, we're doing a good job. And now they're like coming out and they're like, but like black plastic containers aren't getting recycled because the conveyor belts are black. So like, don't even bother with black plastic. You're like, well, what do I do with this black plastic now? Order. That's what happens. Um, or I don't know, me and you, we both watched what I think was the same documentary, although like streaming in Canada and India was very difficult to find.
Yeah.
Um, and it was saying how like, yeah, by the way, there's like seven numbers in these chasing arrows, and what was it, like five of them actually mean non-recyclable?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like,
They need like special
so because
machinery and special conditions to recycle them, yeah.
yeah, because the plastics industry has they well it was like they refused to recycle some of the products because they would need the special machinery, and like some of the plastics like they just can't handle being melted down and repurposed because they'll break down in the process. And then when the recycling industry went to the plastics industry and was like, great, can we just put a different symbol on the bottom so people know? The plastics industry just said no. they said the only other option you get is a plain triangle, which like looks the exact same.
Yeah.
So the recycling industry said, I guess we'll stick with this confusing numbers system.
Yeah.
And now we just have all this plastic that can't be recycled, but people keep thinking can be because no one's informing anyone about it. And it's just all a really bad system.
Yes.
Like, what? And I talked to my mom about this too. Because I
Okay.
was like, Mom, did you know recycling is a complete lie? And she was like, Stephanie, please stop bringing these things to my attention. And I went, never. Oh man. I bring so much doom and gloom into my mom's life. Sorry, Mom. Love you. Um, but yeah, and she had said to me that what she always thought the numbers meant was how many times an item can get recycled, which I think is interesting because that's something I had heard as a child about glass bottles. There's like dots on the bottom of glass bottles, and like the amount of dots I was told was like how many times it has been recycled or like how many times it can be recycled. So like clearly there's these weird like old wives' tales about recycling that are just like being perpetuated by like storytelling.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what if we just like sneak in some truth into these old wives' tales and we just like sneak in like, hey, you can't recycle black. Like, it doesn't happen. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching this
That's my understanding of recycling.
I was watching this documentary where they were like most of the stuff that is thrown into recycling cannot be recycled, so it's either incinerated or exported to a third world country where they buy these garbage and waste and to in order to recycle, but they cannot recycle it either, so it's thrown
So
in
they're
landfills,
also incinerating it.
either incinerated in third world countries or left unattended in landfills. And these symbols created by the plastic industry, it's just to pacify the consumer and to make them believe that the fact that plastic is not recyclable, plastic is damaging the planet. When all this news got into media, the plastics industry wanted to save themselves, so they came up with a system to just to pacify the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that is why recycling is a myth. And you have to be aware of what is recyclable and what is not. And even if there's one contaminant in the batch, they would discard the entire batch even if there is recyclable plastic in that.
Like it like doesn't even make sense, but like at to a degree like it does make sense because like if you think about the amount of plastic, and maybe in your life there's not much because you're saying where you live, like that's much less the culture, but like here, like it's everywhere. Like you walk into a grocery store and you can buy like an
Oh,
individually wrapped bell pepper.
yes.
Why? Why does my pepper need to be individually wrapped? Like that doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah.
And like so yeah, it's like it's just
But you know what?
it's gross.
Unfortunately, the culture was much better before here, but it's changing now,
Mm-hmm.
and people have been using a lot of plastic lately, especially with online grocery shopping. They need to maintain
Mm,
the condition of the groceries, so they wrap it in a lot of plastic. So that is very
yeah.
unfortunate.
And like and with COVID as well, like obviously an unavoidable experience that has happened and like shook the world and created a lot more plastic than there was before.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, because I do think, I mean, maybe it's like a generation thing that like younger people are starting to be more aware of, or like maybe not, and that's just how I've been observing it. But like the whole trend to be zero waste has definitely like been coming up, and
Mm-hmm.
like it's a lot more difficult now with COVID because, if for example, I was really big at shopping at Bulk Barn.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Canadian chain. You can buy things in bulk, and they had a great program where you could bring in a glass jar or plastic container, whatever you had. As long as it was clean, they would inspect it to make sure it was clean. They would weigh it beforehand, write down the weight, and then you could fill it with whatever bulk product, and they would weigh it afterwards and just charge you for the amount of product in the container.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah.
I used it all the time. And I definitely cut down a ton of my waste doing that because I could buy things like loose leaf tea, which previously I had to buy in a plastic bag at the tea shop or, whatever.
Also, you would be buying only the
things
amount.
Like that are not.
Sorry, you would. Sorry. I said you would also be buying only the amount of food that you would consume and not buy more just because the brand is
that's the only size more. You can.
Yeah.
But yeah, like stuff like that like isn't an option anymore because like you obviously can't bring in your own container to use when COVID is rampant, especially here in Toronto. But yeah, so I do think that like unfortunately COVID has made it a bit more difficult to be zero waste, but those mentalities are still like starting to be in place, and I think people are sort of like with all the time spent at home starting to become a bit more aware of like, wow, how much garbage am I making and how much like food waste is kind of insane. And the fact that like composting isn't so accessible everywhere, I think is pretty terrible, and I think that should be fixed. I think that if composting becomes much more accessible and people know how to compost and what to put into their compost, I think that could make like a huge impact because like I don't know if this is something you've heard before. I have done little research on this lately, but I have heard or read or whatever somewhere that the food breakdown in the landfills actually is like a huge contributing factor in methane gas, I think it is. Yes. And like because of the heat of the breakdown of the food, it will also start landfill fires, which obviously means that things like plastic and like weird chemicals are being burned, and that's not getting filtered anywhere. It's just going straight into the air, and that's not great. Yeah. So, if people had more access to compost, I think that could actually be a really good thing that is like so simple of a way for people to be helping.
In an ideal world, in my ideal world in my head, every street would have like a community compost center or something, and every little tiny bit of organic waste that is produced by every household would be converted into manure and compost.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
Yes,
I would love that.
Yes, how amazing would that be? Yeah, like what you were talking about. Like, sorry, what you were saying about the methane is actually about 3 or 4 times more potent than carbon dioxide. So we are so educated about carbon dioxide emissions and how harmful that is for the greenhouse effect that's happening. Methane is so much more destructive than carbon dioxide. Yeah.
So like clearly is an issue that needs to be addressed.
Clearly, and it's not just the breakdown of food waste, it's also breakdown of paper, and also recently bioplastic, like degradable plastic, biodegradable plastic. If you throw it in the landfills and it's not turned over or whatever, if it's just getting suffocated, it produces methane.
Okay. Good to know. Yeah. People, biodegrade your biodegradables.
Yep.
There's also, I mean, again, not a thing that I've done extensive research into, but I've definitely like looked into a bit, is like the whole meats industry. And like, I think it's starting to become much more known now how big of an impact, especially beef, has on the world in general, in terms of like farming, and the classic like quote, fact, whatever, that like cow farts produce so much methane that like they are in themselves an actual contributor to global warming. Like whether we like it or not, cow farts could be the end of us. Like I do think that's like kind of hilarious, but also is like, wow, like are there that many cows on the planet? Like as someone who like I eat meat. I don't eat it like super, super frequently because I refuse to cook it for myself and therefore don't buy it in grocery shops or anything. I just like it's so interesting and like strange how if you go to the meat aisle of a grocery store, you can instantly be so detached from the fact that like that was an animal. So like I have zero concept when I'm looking in say the pork section and I see sausages and bacon and pork chops and ribs. I think you can buy pork ribs. I have no concept like how many of those packages of meat I would have to buy to make up one pig's worth of meat. Like that's not a concept I've ever had in my brain. So in my mind, like if I walked by the meat section of a grocery store, like in my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, like maybe one cow, like half a pig, some chickens, but like it's probably much more than that. And I just have no concept, because like, and that's part of the whole industry is like they really aren't giving you this like slab of bloody meat and like a little cow's face. Like they want you to be detached from it. They want you to just see it as like food to put in your body.
Yeah.
And like in doing so, it detaches you as well from like the amount, I guess, and like how did that food come to be? Because like, like sometimes you see the sticker and it's like grain fed, but like I don't even know what that means. Like I don't know what anything meat related means.
Yeah.
It just means meat. It took me a very long time. I remember probably being like 9 or 11 years old and just like sitting there very like frustrated and confused and like having to get my parents to explain to me like what animal is pork.
Okay.
And they were like, it's pig. And I was like, but bacon is pig. And they're like, yeah, that's pig too. And I was like, okay. And then like, what's beef? And they're like, that's cow. And I was like, wait, but why isn't it just called cow? Like, what's steak? And like that was a very confusing thing as a child. Like, I just don't understand. How are all these meats the same animal? Like, I had a friend tell me once that like I think she said that when she was like around the same age is when she like started getting into vegetarianism because she had the realization that like chicken is chicken.
Yeah.
And so she started making these flyers or posters or something and like putting them up around like I think like probably like her house and her school, I'm not too sure, but literally just saying like chicken is chickens. Like because it's like it's kind of this weird concept that like you really can eat chicken and even though it's called chicken you don't think about chickens.
Yeah.
That's just it's ridiculous.
I cannot relate to anything you have gone through because I grew up vegetarian and I still am a vegetarian. And
well, that's probably why your country's doing better than mine when it comes to waste.
But I did get extremely curious about what meat tasted like when, I was like about 17, 18. I was in that very curious stage of my life. And then I did go around trying different types of meats. But then I was like, okay, I kind of get the idea. It could be delicious if it's an acquired taste. But then I could not stop picturing like while eating chicken, I could not stop picturing an alive hen just, walking around like the ghost of the meat in my head.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, this is too much. I don't have to get converted into eating meat. I can just stick to doing whatever I'm doing right now.
Yeah, for sure. Which is like so much better for your body, for the planet, and for those chickens.
Yeah.
Ghost chicken was good. Ghost chicken is very good.
Yeah. I mean, unlike clean and neat Toronto, Canada, we have like wild chickens and cows and stray dogs walking around on the streets. So we actually get to see them on a daily basis. And unlike, like you have your petting zoos, and I'm doing a finger quote while I say this. I'm like, I have a petting zoo right outside my house.
Yeah, so you have like a lot more attachment to like the actual physical animal as a being. Yeah, I can't say I've ever spent much time around live chickens.
Yeah.
Yeah, although, like, I mean, it's not my experience at all, but my mom's experience, like, she grew up killing her own chickens.
Ooh.
Like, that was how my mom and my aunts and my uncle grew up, or at least, like, some part of their childhood. But I don't know. And I guess, like, maybe because for them, they were able to just be like, this is the farm animal that we will eat. And, like, they grew up in rural PEI, so, like, you kind of did that, to my knowledge.
Yeah. That reminds me like Anne with an E.
I grew up. Sorry?
It reminds me of Anne with an E.
Oh. Hey, despite having PEI heritage, I don't think I've ever watched or read anything Anna Green Gables. I just know that she's like some girl in PEI.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of like, I don't know, like I've been to PEI. I know what's up. I don't know, maybe I should engage in like the heritage and the culture of kind of my own people. I guess that's my own people. That's where my mom's literally from.
Yeah.
Well, we've gone off topic. What else do I have here? Oh, baking soda. I have that written down as a little buzzword for today's conversation. Because when I began my zero waste journey back in, I don't know, I want to say like 2017, 2018, somewhere around there. Yeah. Totally inspired by a friend, Jen. Thank you, Jen. You're a freaking badass lady. I had like put out into the internet, hi, I'm going on a van life adventure and I want people to challenge me to do different things. And she challenged me to go zero waste, which I thought was going to be like the most intense, like difficult thing ever. And turns out is not. It's very much just like take baby steps until you get there and you'll be okay. Like, you know, give yourself some forgiveness if you like slip up a little bit and remember that the big corporations are still the evil giants, but you have small impact or, you know, possibly large impact. But baking soda was like the one thing that I turned to for so much of like, especially like my beauty routine, which I found really, really, truly shocking. And I know some people have like baking soda sensitivity, so they can't. But for me, I was like, homemade toothpaste, baking soda. Yeah. Homemade face scrub, baking soda.
Oh, hell yes.
Homemade dry shampoo, baking soda. Homemade regular shampoo, baking soda, and then an apple cider vinegar rinse.
Yes.
Like, deodorant, baking soda. Everything, baking soda. And I just think, mouthwash, baking soda. Like, I just think it's, like, absolutely extraordinary how, like, this one thing, sodium bicarb, I tried Googling it. It comes from the earth. It's biodegradable. It can go down the drains. It's not going to cause microplastics. And it can literally be like so many swaps. Even like if your drain is clogged and you're like, I'm going to go buy some chemicals to dump down there. No, put a bunch of baking soda and then dump a bunch of vinegar and then pour in a pot of boiling water and plug for 10 minutes. Boom, your drain works fine. It kind of blew my mind. I was like, this is kind of ridiculous. Like, why are we marketed so many different products that can all just be replaced by this white powder in a box?
Yeah. I've definitely gone down a rabbit
white
hole.
Powder from Bulk Barn.
I've definitely gone down a rabbit hole of, you know, exploring about baking soda. It's so fascinating. Like you said, it can be used for like so many things. When you use it as a face scrub, your face is like a baby's butt. It's so smooth and soft. And I use it in my hair regularly.
Except you can't do it too often.
Yeah.
Because then your face just gets raw because you exfoliate it too often. Only exfoliate 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, if I get too raw, then you can just cook me up and eat the meat.
Because she's a snack, folks.
baking soda rocks. I would recommend everybody to go down a rabbit hole on the internet exploring baking soda.
Gosh,
It can literally be used for everything.
Fall in love with it.
Hell yes.
Honestly, like it's probably, I would say, a more addicting white powder than cocaine. Like, just so much better and so much cheaper. Oh my gosh. Like, if you're gonna fall in love with a white powder, let it be baking soda for the love of God. Or, whoever you follow. But also very fascinating. I could not tell you the company's name. I could not tell you if they are successful now or not. But when I had gotten into my baking soda rabbit hole, I was like, I started Googling because I was like, naturally, I want to know if my zero waste swap is actually a good swap or not. And I was like, okay, where does baking soda come from? And then I was like, okay, wait, what else is happening in the world with baking soda? And at that time, there was a company that had developed, oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with this. I really should look into this again, see what they're up to. But they had developed a way of capturing CO2 emissions from large factories and somehow separating and doing whatever chemical process that was all like very safe and good on the planet to like separate things and make this CO2 waste into baking soda. And it all operated out of like these little factories that would be able to be put up beside the big factory that was out of a shipping crate. Like, that's how small this operation was. But at the time, because it was all very like new technology, it costed like $1 million to get one of these like mini factories put in beside your factory to reduce your carbon offset. So not many people were going for it. Okay. But I just found it like really interesting to be like, oh wow, so you've like literally found a way of like capturing waste and turning it into this usable product that I'm freaking addicted to. Like, wow, you're incredible. Like, tell me more.
I mean, it's such a turn on, the fact that it's natural and it's biodegradable, but the fact that it's, helping another cause, converting the CO2 in the air and making it into baking soda is a bigger turn on.
Right? Yeah. It's like, yes, Daddy, I'm here. Oh, God.
Okay, Steph, on that, it's been 42 minutes. Should we wrap it up?
Oh, yeah, I guess we should probably wrap this up so our listeners don't hate us.
Okay, do we say
and by listeners, we mean you, Micah. Hello.
A one and only listener.
Our one and only amazing sound editor. Thank you, Micah. We love you.
We love you, Micah. Do we say the same time next week at the same time?
Wait, is that the one we're going with? Or was it be a reusable bag,
yes.
Trash bag?
Let's do that.
Okay, wait. Are we doing the same time, or do you want to just say
I think we should just take turns to say it because saying it at the same time is kind of inaudible, I feel like.
Okay, wait. Pause. I just had a new idea that I think could be good. And remember, folks, don't be a trash bag.
Be a reusable bag. Bye, Steph!
Bye, Alicia!